Princess and steady influence rarely makes headlines, but this time, her role was pivotal. In a moment of profound institutional vulnerability, it was alongside Prince William, who urged a firm break, no return, no reconsideration. The months of quiet debate inside the palace gave way to one sharp conclusion. Meghan Markle would not be welcomed back into royal life under any circumstances. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. With King Charles's health deteriorating and public trust in flux, ambiguity was no longer tolerable. This wasn't a personal vendetta. It was a calculated move to draw a hard boundary that the monarchy desperately needed to survive intact. For Meghan, the decision wasn't just a closed door. It was the end of a long and highly public negotiation between identity and tradition, played out across continents and generations. The palace's finality signals not only an institutional defense, but a refusal to entertain dual narratives about her future role. What began as cultural friction has now solidified into policy. The monarchy will not dilute its structure to accommodate media-driven ambiguity. The clarity may sting, but in a world increasingly shaped by perception, the royals have chosen self-preservation over reconciliation. It's official. The British royal family has just closed the door and locked it on Meghan Markle. No more speculation. No more maybe one day. The palace has made it crystal clear Meghan will not be returning in any royal role. Ever. This isn't just another quiet shift in protocol. This is one of the most definitive, irreversible decisions to come out of the monarchy in years. And it's not just about Meghan. It's about the institution itself, how it survives, who gets to be part of it, and what happens when the lines between tradition and modernity finally snap. And yes, this came with serious internal pressure, because behind the polished PR and centuries-old pomp, the palace has been quietly bracing for impact. King Charles's health has left a visible power vacuum, and when leadership weakens, narratives tighten. The firm couldn't afford any more ambiguity. They needed clarity. They needed control. And Meghan, with all her media power and global recognition, became the center of a very specific, very sensitive debate. For months, conversations were happening behind the scenes. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Not dramatic shouting matches, but strategic, cautious debates. How do you manage public perception without feeding the press frenzy? How do you protect the monarchy when your most well-known outliers, Harry and Meghan, are still shaping the global? And it was Prince William and Princess who pushed for clarity, not out of personal vendetta, but because from their view, the monarchy can't survive blurred lines anymore. Either you're in or you're out. And Meghan, she's out. Now, let's be clear. This wasn't about one interview or one documentary. It was the accumulation of everything. The Oprah special, the Netflix series, the relentless tabloid wars. The royal sources say headlines on both sides of the Atlantic. The back and forth between the Sussexes and the institution became a loop that never ended. And while Meghan's supporters in the US framed her story as one of liberation and defiance, in the UK, that same narrative was often viewed as damaging, even destabilizing. And with King Charles stepping back from duties due to health issues, the palace was operating under stress. The system was vulnerable. It couldn't afford another wave of media chaos, especially not one involving someone still technically tethered to the family. So the answer? Cut the cord completely. Remove all ambiguity. No future roles. No revived patronages. No soft re-entry. Meghan is not returning to the fold. Not now. Not later. This decision also exposes something deeper, the cultural fault line that's always been there. The British monarchy is built on heritage, ritual, hierarchy. But Meghan came from a different world, one that values personal freedom, reinvention, and questioning authority. Neither side was wrong, but they were never going to align. That tension, which once seemed like it might evolve the monarchy into something more modern, ultimately became its biggest. The announcement didn't just ripple through Buckingham Palace. It went global in seconds. In the UK, older generations saw this as overdue, a firm full stop to a story that's dragged on far too long. But among younger people, reactions were mixed. Some felt this was the monarchy clinging to outdated values. Others understood the need for decisive boundaries in an institution constantly under scrutiny. In the U.S., the response was predictably polarized. For many, Meghan remains a symbol of pushing back against archaic institutions. To them, this was a royal family once again choosing image over inclusion. But from the palace's perspective, it wasn't personal. It was survival. Internally, it wasn't emotionless either. Sources describe the mood behind the scenes as a strange mix of relief and sadness. There's an understanding that while this move closes a door, it also frees everyone from the exhausting in-between. For Harry and Meghan, it was perceived as a final rejection, not just of Meghan, but of their entire effort to carve out a hybrid space, half in, half out. That space never really existed, and now it never will. But the bigger takeaway here isn't just about family politics or who's invited to the next balcony appearance. It's about institutional identity. The monarchy saw that without clearly defined roles, it risked unraveling in the modern media age. Every interview, every public appearance, every headline that questioned who was a real royal chipped away at the core of what the monarchy is supposed to represent. The message they've now sent? This institution has limits. And if those limits aren't protected, everything else, duty, tradition, relevance, starts to erode. It's also a move rooted in strategy. William and him weren't reacting emotionally. They looked at media trends, cultural divides, public sentiment. They saw that every time the royal family left Meghan's future undefined, the speculation spiraled. It distracted from the crown's responsibilities. It created chaos. And in times of vulnerability, like when the king is ill, that chaos becomes a threat. So, this wasn't just about ending a chapter. It was about stabilizing the entire book. What's left now is a kind of unspoken agreement. No more guessing games. No more sources say she might be welcome back someday. No more illusions that a new title position is coming. The future is separate. Meghan's path is her own, completely outside the monarchy. But that, in a way, is also a form of freedom. For all parties, the firm gets to tighten its ranks and refocus on the people still inside the structure. Meghan gets the opportunity to fully define her role without having to navigate royal expectations. There's no more double vision. Of course, the emotional fallout won't disappear overnight. For Harry especially, this marks another layer of distance from his past. But even that might offer clarity. With no more backroom discussions about re-entry, the Sussexes can step forward with their own priorities without constantly looking back at a door that was never going to open. This story also reflects something much bigger than just the royals. It taps into the universal tension between tradition and change, between legacy and reinvention. Meghan became the face of that debate, whether she intended to or not. Her exit from the royal framework now forces everyone involved to own their choices. And the monarchy? It's signaling that it will no longer straddle both worlds. It is choosing preservation over experimentation. It is choosing order over adaptation. Whether that keeps it relevant in the long term is a different question. But for now, it's made its stance known. The palace has spoken. And for once, there's no gray area. Meghan Markle will not be returning to royal life. Not now, not ever. The timing, the tone, the totality, it all signals a monarchy desperately trying to reclaim control in a media landscape that rarely lets it breathe. The king is ill. The younger royals are stepping up. The public is watching. There was no room left for ambiguity. This was the clean break they believed had to happen. So what does the future hold for Meghan and Harry? That part is unwritten. But it's no longer tied to Windsor, Buckingham, or Balmoral. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to finally, officially, shut the... Let us know what you think. Was this the right move? Was the monarchy protecting itself, or shutting out change? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, give it a like and share it with someone who's been following the saga from the start. This wasn't just a decision. It was a message. Loud, firm, and final. 4 years, the monarchy tiptoed around the Meghan question. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. She kept her Duchess title. Her name was still technically in the mix. There were whispers of reconciliation, quiet hopes of some kind of hybrid role. Maybe a return to patronages, maybe a presence at future royal events. But all of that is gone now. Erased. The line has been drawn. And it's not in sand. It's carved in stone. And make no mistake, the decision wasn't spontaneous. The palace didn't just wake up one day and cut ties. This was months in the making. Strategic meetings, long-term risk assessments, constant monitoring of how the public was reacting to every headline and photo of Meghan's image, especially in the United States, became a powerful, polarizing force. And while that might have been manageable in calmer times, these aren't calm times. King Charles's health has changed everything. When the figurehead of an entire institution becomes physically vulnerable, every move made around him carries more weight. Every association is analyzed more critically. And that's where the Meghan factor became too risky. The palace didn't just want to avoid drama. They needed to avoid misinterpretation. Uncertainty had become, in that context, Meghan's ongoing global presence, her interviews, her speeches, her media brand, started to feel like a wild card. To the monarchy, every ambiguity around her role became a potential threat to stability. Would she speak out again? Would she clarify her position? Would someone in the media twist a soundbite into another transatlantic feud? The answer, for the royals, was to eliminate the question entirely. If there's no role, there's no speculation, no headlines about a possible return, no awkward glances at state events, no need for crisis PR strategies. Clean break. Full stop. William and saw it first. The pressure to modernize had already fractured the institution once. They weren't going to let it happen again, not while Charles was vulnerable and public faith in the monarchy needed reinforcing. Their goal was simple: reinforce the core, silence the noise. And this move did exactly that. But that doesn't mean it was easy. For Harry, this wasn't just a political move. It was personal. Meghan is his wife, his chosen family. Her rejection from the system he was born into feels like a rejection of him, too. The emotional stakes are high, especially given everything they've already walked through together. The media attacks, the strained family ties, the interviews that made global shockwaves. Now, there's no more pretending things might get better. This is the institution saying, we've made peace with your absence, and we're closing the chapter. And yes, that hurts. Because even with all the conflict, even with all the interviews and accusations, there was always this quiet possibility in the background that maybe, somehow, there'd be a way to coexist. That maybe time would soften the lines. But time didn't do that. If anything, it made the lines. There's something incredibly final about the palace making this public. It wasn't just a private internal agreement. It was a statement meant to be seen, meant to be heard. They wanted the world to know the boundary had been, and this wasn't just about protecting royal protocol. It was about image, narrative, legacy, because in today's world, controlling the story is half the battle. And when it comes to Meghan and Harry, the royal family has lost control of the story too many times. Each public appearance, each media deal, each new project sparked another wave of questions. Was Meghan still a duchess? Was there a plan for her to return in some limited capacity? With the Queen's passing change, and with Charles now sick, the palace had to act. This was not just a reaction, it was prevention. It's a monarchy saying, we won't let this uncertainty drag us down. We won't be defined by headlines we didn't write. It's damage control with a very specific target, ambiguity. And to be honest, that's the most telling part. Because ambiguity, in their view, was a true danger. Not Meghan herself, not her politics, not her past, but the open-ended nature of her future, the lack of definition, the fuzziness, and in a system built entirely on hierarchy and certainty, fuzziness is fatal. So they cut it off. And now? Now we're left with the aftermath. The reactions have been as divided as you'd expect. In the UK, many older citizens felt it was long overdue. The monarchy, they believe, should be clear, composed, and tightly controlled. To them, Meghan had stepped too far outside the boundaries. She'd challenged the system, and now the system was protecting itself. But younger voices, much more conflicted. Some feel this proves the institution hasn't evolved, that it still punishes those who don't play by the old rules, that Meghan was never really given a fair chance to reshape her role without being scrutinized or sidelined. And in the U.S., well, the narrative's always been different there. Meghan isn't just seen as a duchess. She's seen as a woman who walked away from an institution she didn't believe in, a woman who prioritized her peace over protocol. To many, this new decision just confirms what they've long believed, that the monarchy was never really willing to embrace change. That divide? It's not going anywhere, and the palace knows it. That's part of why they acted now, because the longer the Meghan question lingered, the more divided the public became. And divided public perception, in the monarchy's world, is a ticking time bomb. So they did what institutions do when threatened. They tightened the walls. They clarified the rules. And they removed a variable they couldn't control. But what happens next? That's the wild card. For Meghan and Harry, this means a royal chapter is over. Fully, publicly, irreversibly. That royal door is closed. So what do you do when you're no longer linked to the crown, but the world still watches you like you are? That's the tension they'll live in. And for the monarchy, this isn't just a decision, it's a test. They've chosen preservation. They've chosen control. But in doing so, they've revealed just how fragile that control really is. Because if one woman with a microphone and a platform can stir this much institutional anxiety, it says something about how much the monarchy relies on silence, structure, and tradition to maintain its power. It also says something about change and how this institution still struggles to handle it. At the end of the day, this wasn't just about Meghan. It was about everything she represented. Modernity, individualism, cultural divergence, and the palace's response? A hard reset, a firm boundary, no more dual roles, no more maybes. This is what the monarchy looks like when it chooses survival over sentiment. It's cold, it's calculated, but in their eyes, it's necessary. And whether you see that as strength or stubbornness depends entirely on where you're standing. Now the question is, how do you rebuild a legacy with no royal ties, but all the royal baggage? That's where Meghan and Harry are now. No more towing the line. No more palace limbo. Just a future that's fully their own and fully disconnected, which might just be the clarity they needed all along. Here's what makes it so jarring. It wasn't supposed to end like this. When Meghan first married into the royal family, the global reaction wasn't scandal, it was celebration. A biracial, American actress stepping into the centuries-old institution of British royalty? It was billed as a future, a bridge between worlds, proof that the monarchy could evolve, that it was evolving. But behind the scenes, cracks formed fast. There were whispers, protocol disputes, media attacks, and the infamous us versus them split in the press. Still, even through the drama, there was always this lingering hope that somehow, despite everything, they'd find a way to make it work. But now, there's no hope left to cling to. The palace's decision makes it brutally clear. Not only is Meghan out, but the conversation about her ever being part of the institution again is officially over. The ambiguity is dead, buried, and there's no resuscitating it. This announcement wasn't just a quiet shift in tone. It was a total erasure of potential. No titles will be revived. No events extended. No honorary roles. No seat at the table. And that's the part that stings. Not because it's shocking. It's not, but because it's final. It's not just a no. For the monarchy, this moment is a declaration of priorities. They are saying, we choose tradition. We choose control. We choose our structure, even if that means closing the door on the most high-profile woman to marry into the family in modern history. Because this isn't about pettiness. It's about power. And when institutions feel their grip loosening, they double down on what they... You can feel the tension behind the curtain. King Charles is facing major health issues. The younger royals are being pushed into leadership faster than expected. And the spotlight is intense. With so much at stake, the last thing they want is a wildcard narrative floating around, pulling attention and credibility away from the firm's core image. And Meghan, she became that wildcard, not because of what she said last week, or even last year, but because of what she could say next. That possibility, that media presence, that global reach, it's power the monarchy doesn't control. And that made her dangerous to their narrative. So instead of trying to manage it, they severed it. And let's be honest, this isn't just a royal family drama. It's a global PR strategy. Every move is calculated. Every message designed to protect the brand. And in their eyes, Meghan had become brand risk number one. But while the palace closes ranks, the rest of us are left watching the ripple effect. Because you can't erase a woman like Meghan from public consciousness. You can't rewrite the fact that she shifted how the world views the crown, that she exposed how rigid and fragile the system still is, that she became a symbol, whether she asked to be or not, for those who felt unwelcome in spaces built to exclude. And now, by slamming the door shut, the palace isn't just defining Meghan's place, it's defining its own. It's saying, we are not changing, we are not bending, and if you don't fit into the mold, you're not part of the legacy. So what now? For Meghan and Harry, this means their future is officially, entirely outside of the royal structure. They are on their own, not just symbolically, but structurally. No more strings. No more silent hope that one day they'll be invited back into the fold. It's pure independence, which sounds freeing, but also comes with weight. Because now, there's no fallback, no possibility of realignment. Everything they build going forward is theirs. And that's powerful, but it's also high stakes. Every public move, every business deal, every interview, it all reflects on them, not the crown. They don't have the cushion of the institution. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the real story here isn't about loss. It's about, meanwhile, the royal family gets what it wants. Structure, clarity, and the end of an exhausting public question. No more headlines wondering if Meghan will return to official duties. No more speculation about a modernized role. That storyline has been erased, intentionally. But at what cost? Because while they may have secured their framework, they've also confirmed what many already believed. That the monarchy only works if everyone follows the script. That deviation, even for noble reasons, leads to exile. And that message, it travels. So we're left with a monarchy that's more tightly controlled than ever, and a couple on the outside who now have full freedom, plus all the scrutiny that comes with it. Whatever your opinion is on Meghan, the royal family, or the way this all played out, one thing's clear. The age of royal ambiguity is over. The palace wants order. Meghan represents disruption. And now, the two paths have officially split, no bridges left between them. The only question that remains, who writes the next chapter? Let us know what side of this story you're on. Hit the comments, share your take, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep unpacking stories like this, because something tells us this saga's far from over.